Welcome back. Apologies for the lack of videos, it's just a brief one to keep you up to date with what's going on. I am having awful problems trying to get a hold of clock movements for the pendulum clocks, the chronograph, which I've been making lots of. I've managed to get hold of 3, so I've put one together. That's already sold to some very kind person in Slovakia, so that got sent off yesterday. This is another one which I'm testing, which seems to be at a strange angle at the moment, along with... There's the other one I'm testing. There's poor old Victoria. Still haven't done any more to her speech yet, but I'm going to get on with that once I've finished all these clocks. The other great thing that's happened is I've sold out of the Nempnett Thrubwell, so I've been very busy putting together another 10 Nempnett Thrubwell kits. Here's my lovely instructions, so I know what I'm talking about and what goes into each part of the kit. As part of the Nempnett Thrubwell kit, I needed some of these spigoted turned beech knobs. I need the ones with the spigots, a bit sticking out the back, because that means I can line up, or allow people assembling the kit to very accurately line up the gear that this needs to fit to. You can't get them for love nor money, as always. Any sort you want, as long as it hasn't got a spigot on it. But I got in touch with a supplier that I used a couple of years ago and said, do you by any chance have some lying around? And they got back to me and said, yes, we've got about 250 lying around. Do you want to buy the lot for 20 quid? How can I resist? So now I'm the proud owner of probably the only spigoted brass beech knobs in the UK. A proud moment. There are the brass and metal plumbing fittings, but for the second time running, very good plumbers merchants I found online. They do stock everything, very reasonably priced, but for the second time running they didn't send me the correct order. There are a load of nonsense rings missing. These brass pipe fittings, each kit needs a 28mm, a 22mm and a 15mm. I counted them all up before I placed the order to make sure I would end up with sufficient quantity, plus one extra. And I was putting these parts of the kits together last night and found that they had got a load of bits missing, so it's so frustrating. But the great thing is that the eBay supplier I used for the clock movements did have 10 of these trigger movements. These are the ones that I use in the Nempnett Thrubwells, and the trigger movement I use when the time setting pointer hand travels past 0, it triggers this, and that's what sets the air horn off. And I've got enough air horns because I ordered plenty from Spain a few weeks back, so you know, it's all coming along, but it can be very frustrating when you just can't get on because someone's not delivered the right thing or whatever. Anywho, mustn't grumble. And do remember to visit my website or my Etsy shop, where you can purchase all of these amazingly wonderful things, along with possibly placing an order for one of the bigger machines that I make to order. They were £2,300, but I'm thinking about reducing the price because I've got so much better at making them. They're much more sort of streamlined, they're taking less time to make. I may drop the price down to about 1900, sort of £400 off, £500. So that's something to take note of. And there's also the Krakens, which I must get round to putting on the website and Etsy shop. Links in the description. The beads have arrived for the eyes. I thought initially I'd go for sort of cream colour eyes or black eyes. 2 different sizes, one for the smaller size, one for the larger. And they fit in, they just pop in. The lovely thing is that when I set up the ordering, I will have an option for getting a plain one that's unfinished, so that you can add your own. And the great thing is that once you paint this, the eyes just pop in. You can put a spot of glue perhaps, but I mean these have just pushed in and the shape of the plastic is holding. Look at that. It's beautiful. That's the one that fits on the front of the pair of Steampunk goggles. These goggles, for example, a couple of different varieties, but they all seem to have the same size front, which is very handy. So this just will clip onto there, will be glued on. Lovely, excellent. I've even finished making the boxes for the chronographs. with the lovely foam support system inside. It works a treat. And the very good quality Duracell A battery, a raw plug and a wood screw. I like to include everything that's required. Hopefully I'll finish the kits in the next couple of days and then I can get on with Victoria. I really am looking forward to getting on with it. I'll have to unshred this spaghetti first of all, but it's a photo! Who would have thought? Exciting knock at the door. Package. What could it be? Wow, it turns out incredibly badly packaged pendulum movements for the remainder of the chronographs. And you can see there's even little bits of plastic already snapped off. How and why would you send a load of fragile clock movements in a plastic bag without any packaging? There's no cushioning, there's no protection. People I buy clock movements from before, they always wrap them up and put them in boxes or something. Also, I'm going to have to check all these very carefully. I got these from Banggood UK because they were the only ones, having studied the pictures, the photographs on loads of different sites. These are identical to the ones that I've already used on the first three. It's just a shame that the clock supplier on eBay that I use didn't have enough to fulfill the whole order. Anyway, hopefully these new ones will work properly. As always, I test everything. Once the clocks are assembled, I leave them running for 24 hours at least to make sure they all function perfectly before packaging them. I've just got round to unpacking these clock movements. I ordered 7, they've sent me 6. It is unbelievable. There's just so much inefficiency around. It makes it really difficult to try and plan and create all these projects and get everything stocked up and get ready to sell stuff and everything else when suppliers are so useless. Now I've got to wait for more plumbing bits to hopefully arrive if they believe me that they didn't send me the right stuff, and now I've got to contact Banggood UK and say you didn't send me one of them. That's just ridiculous. Very frustrating. Anyhow, nothing to grumble. There's a nice success story. A bit of tinkering with some machines, the lathe. In the past, I've only ever been able to withdraw the chuck up to about 12mm because the tapered shaft that holds the chuck in place had a bit sticking out the end, which was a pain. It meant that the movement I had this way was so limited. So what I thought, I was drilling out the wooden knobs. I just thought, I'm fed up with this. So I thought what I'd do is precision grind the end off, initially with a hacksaw, but it was hardened steel, that wasn't very successful, and then precision ground it off with a precision angle grinder. And cutting that off has made all the difference. It's a bit like a video I made a few back about when I fixed the shower door. You just get used to things, and the wretched shower door, the hinge at the bottom had gone because it was very badly designed, so every time you pulled it to, it would clunk and you'd have to slam it to get it to go over the ridge. Every time I have a shower now, I really appreciate the fact it doesn't do that. It just smoothly closes, and having drilled out these knobs now, I can't tell you what a joy it is to be able to wind that right back. It's such a small thing, and I've got used to it over the years. It's always been the problem, and it's a joy, because what happened prior to taking that thing off, the knobbly bit, was if I went back less than 12mm, something inside would then force the taper out and it would all fall down. And now I can go right back to even minus numbers and it's fine. What a joy. Lovely. And here are the drilled out knobs. One thing to watch out for, if you go too fast drilling through from this end, the drill can wobble off a bit if it hits a really tough bit of grain, and then despite it being in a lathe, the hole isn't in the centre. Luckily I've got 250 of these, because initially, before I realised what I was doing, they were all off centre and I've had to discard about 5 of them. What a bit of luck, I've got such a nice lot of stock. This is so exciting. There's the guide image, and voila, as if by magic, There's one of them laid out. I'm doing two at a time. There's the other one laid out. Then once I've counted them in, there's 16 parts in all sorts of exciting things to help make the Nempnett Thrubwell. You've got the real wooden end panels, lovely beech knob, turn knob, back panel, front panel, side panels, and all sorts of little exciting bits and pieces. There's even a tool here that helps you hold this knob when you come to stain it and polish it, and it also fits into a slot at the front to support the whole thing while you're putting the electronics together. I like to try and think of everything and make life as easy and enjoyable as possible. So I'm going to pile these up. And there we have them, counted, checked in and piled up and arranged nicely. Just having everything so well planned means it's enjoyable for me to put them together, and I'm far less likely to leave any bits out because there's so many different checks going on. And now we come to putting them in the bag, and I found that it's really helpful putting a piece of cardboard in first. Is it this way? No, it's that way. This is exciting. I've got a flat battery, I've got a couple of seconds left. Here's the lovely engravings, proper engraved laminate for the Nempnett Thrubwell. I'm putting them together with the cutout background, metallic background, the spacer and the 3 gears, beautiful gears, and they all end up in a lovely plastic envelope, like so. It's so exciting. The kits are nearly ready and I've got all these bits ready, the new bearing systems ready for the chronographs. It's coming together nice, and I've got all these chronographs assembled and just awaiting the hour dial, and I have created a far better, super improved clamping bracket which has actually tapped inside, and the top is tapped so I can screw and adjust them much more finely than previously. So that's great on. There's even, look, lovely beautiful brass sprayed horns. How exciting. As I've said, quality control is my watchword, and here are 4 of the finished chronographs that I am testing for at least 24 hours, and here's 2 more. They're all working very nicely, I'm pleased to announce. Unfortunately, I noticed a couple of scratches on the remaining bottles for the last 2, so I had to respray them, and this copper paint does take a long time to dry. So during the meanwhile, the switches from RS have arrived, the rotary switches for the remainder of the Nempnett Thrubwell timer kits, and that's great. And I've got to just show you this again, I know you've seen it before, how to get a square bit on the end of a round shaft. I need a square bit because the gas key, not gas key, radiator bleed valve key, lovely brass obviously, needs to sit on a square bit and can then be glued onto that, and that'll allow it to turn properly. And I was umming and ahhing about it and then came up with a jig, and here it is. Very simple idea, but again, it's when you sort of try and solve the problem, you come up with something. It's got 2 bits of wood, one with 4 holes drilled in it at 90 degrees, the other just the right size for the shaft on one of these switches. Now the switches, once you take the screw off the nut and things, they have this locating lug, so that if you're putting them in a panel and you want to know exactly that they line up, there you drill a hole and then it can line up. But for my intents and purposes, this hill lines up with this hill. That means if I set this distance correctly and just run the end of the drill bit in, it'll work perfect. That drill bit, it's a strange drill bit, bandsaw, let's try it. Again, the joys of jigs are that they turn a really unpleasant job into quite an enjoyable one, and I'm all for enjoyable jobs. I was trying this with a file and having to keep trying it on, or a sanding machine or something, but this is just so much easier. Also, it gives you a nice rough surface that the super glue or indeed PVA would adhere to very pleasantly. Lovely. And more excitement. Everything at the moment is very exciting. I've got everything I need now to put this part of the kit together. This is the electrical bits. You've got the clock movement with the trigger, the air pump, the battery holder, the on and off switch and the battery clip, and also 2 bits of wire there to make the battery connector for the clock movement. That's right. So everything's arrived. Fantastic. I have clock movements, I have battery holders, and the switches are now wired up and everything, the pumps and the connectors and wires and things. What I'm going to do though before I put this together is to check that each of these pumps does actually drive a horn. I really want to make sure. It's one of those things, you know, you could just assume, oh yes, they're all going to work, that'll be fine. But no, I'm going to check each one. So to test it, we set the power supply to 5.5 volts just to allow for the voltage drop over the transistor that switches the pump on. I'll switch that on, and then I use a temporary pipe adapter from the horn, and then just touch that and see what happens. Perfect. So that's passed the test, so I'll put that to one side. Oh, and just to mention, in case this is too loud for people, and also the clarion door horn, or rather clarion, by stuffing a bit of tissue or handkerchief down the end of this, you can reduce the volume, just as the Victorians would have done. Just as well I checked. Here's one I prepared earlier. Nothing. In fact, doesn't even draw any current. That's useless. Luckily I've got 2 spares and these do work properly, so that's great. I can still put all 9, the remaining 9 kits together. Just shows you though, doesn't it? You know, all from the same supplier, same model, same everything, and yet these two don't function as they're meant to. You just have to be so careful. Thanks very much for watching. Hope to see you soon. And remember, these things can be purchased on my Etsy site, on my website.